So I'm Gordon Watts. I'm a professor here at the Department of Physics at the University of Washington, and one of the chairs of the local organizing committee.
And my name is Shijie Xu. I'm an associate professor of physics at University of Washington. And the other hat I have is NSF HDR Institute A3D3. I'm another co-chair of the local organizing committee for the summer meeting.
And it's been, what, 2 years, 500 white papers, 1,500 letters of interest, and we're here. I'll say that about half of us are here. There's another half yet to come, so this room is really going to fill up in the next couple of days. To open the community summer study, we've got several people from the university. So we'd like to start with Mari Ostendorf, who is the Vice Provost of Research.
Do you want me to use this or this?
You can use either one. Whichever one you're comfortable with.
Do you want to hold on to this? Or?
Sure. Okay.
Is this okay?
It's on.
All right, great. So I just wanted to welcome you as conference participants to the University of Washington. And I want to say that in reading about this, this meeting, I am so honored for us to be hosting this workshop and to facilitate the very important work and impactful work that you're going to be doing this week. I really applaud your community. I just think it's so great that you're making these efforts to bring so many voices to the table in charting your future strategy for the field. I just think that is such a great vision for the community. And I think I'm excited about it because this commitment reflects our values here at the University of Washington. In research. The UW is one of America's leading research universities. We've got over 1.8 billion in sponsored research, and that cuts across 17 schools and colleges, and it impacts virtually all of our departments. Our work ranges from particle physics, as you know, to artificial intelligence, from climate change to neuroscience. We look at just a wide range of things that touch on all kinds of methodologies. And like you, we're working across different disciplines at different scales with different methodologies and across socio-political boundaries. We put a high value on collaboration. This is evidenced in our many interdisciplinary centers, but also in our commitment to joint appointments. And I've got to say, our physics department is a model for this. We appreciate all the collaboration across departments and across colleges, and the commitment to making those joint appointments and those collaborations work. It's also evidenced by our commitment to external collaborations, particularly international partners. We have partners in the major labs that we work closely with, both locally, such as with PNNL, but nationally and globally, including Fermilab and CERN. And I think this commitment to interdisciplinary and collaborative research is important for our students as well as the science, but it's also important for society because it bringing together these very broad perspectives really leads to greater impact. And so I want to end by thanking you for your commitment to bringing so many voices to your vision, to your commitment to exploring these questions so deeply, And I also want to welcome you and hope that you enjoy your time in this wonderful season in Seattle on this beautiful campus. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mary. And next, we want to invite Diane Harris, Dean of Arts and Science.
Good morning and welcome. I am Diane Harris, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, which is the home of the physics department here at the University of Washington. And I'm absolutely delighted that you're all here on our beautiful campus to think together about the future of particle physics. Thank you to the organizers. Thank you to our physics department faculty, staff, and students. Thank you to Larry Yaffe, chair of that department. I'm not a physicist. I'm a historian of the built environment by training, and I mostly study race and suburban housing. But I'm a skier, so when I received the invitation to make welcoming remarks for this meeting, I confess that my first reaction was excitement at the prospect of going to Snowmass in winter. Visions of skiing and powder filled my head, and then I quickly realized this was a conference in Seattle in summer. But my enthusiasm was reignited when I read this sentence in the description of particle physics that was shared with me. Quote, particle physics is exploration of the unknown at the most fundamental level. It is part of the basic human drive to explore. Accomplishing this research means forming some of the largest collaborations in the world. I can't think of words that more accurately capture the essence of what it means to be part of a great public research university like the University of Washington, nor a better description of our core mission in the College of Arts and Sciences. Our college, by far the largest in this university, ensures that all University of Washington students have the opportunity to get a liberal arts education. An exploration of the unknown is exactly our coin of the realm. It is what we daily traffic in. Our students aren't just hungry for such exploration and for the large-scale collaborations that Mari just mentioned and that we know are required to solve the grand challenges of our time. They're famished for it. And our outstanding faculty are among the very best in the world, producing research that transforms science and informs the instruction they provide to those students. Those are the students who are our future. For those reasons and many more, and although I hope I'll someday be invited to make opening remarks at Snowmass in winter, and by the way, I probably think about physics the most when I'm skiing, so I try not to kill myself, I can't think of a better place for this group to convene. The work you will do here in Seattle over the course of this conference, alone and together, will continue to change our world, impacting our lives for the better. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all you do. Stay safe and healthy, and welcome to the University of Washington.
Thank you, Diane. And Larry Yaffe is the chair of the Department of Physics here.
Thanks, Gordon. So on behalf of the Department of Physics, I want to add my welcome to those of you who have visited the university and the department before, welcome back. To those who may be here for the first time, you should know that the weather forecast for the next 10 days looks absolutely beautiful and boring, and this is the way it always is here in Seattle. Particle physics in our department goes back quite a long ways, certainly to the days of cosmic ray experiments, either balloon-borne or on mountaintops, through the era of visual analysis of bubble chamber photographs, and obviously into the modern era now of some of the largest scientific experiments, biggest data, largest collaborations anywhere. But our department is also known for very unique local experiments going back to the early days of ion trapping that led to our department's first Nobel Prize, to unique work on testing gravity in the lab and looking for fifth forces and violations of the equivalence principle, to ongoing experiments like the ADMX experiment for axion dark matter, like Project 8, developing a next generation neutrino mass experiment. So I hope many of you will, during the next 10 days, find some time to come over to the physics department and take a look at some of the things going on. There's also a number of spaces people are welcome to use just for informal discussions and such. On a personal level, I've been involved in particle theory for a good long time. And I think back to, well, some of my earliest exposures that included listening to Richard Feynman as an undergraduate talk about the evidence for scaling and the idea that there were weakly interacting partons inside hadrons, as well as the fairly recent then discovery of the J-psi and how marvelous it was to try and understand it from just very simple models. I also listened to Kip Thorne as an undergrad talking about the technology development for building interferometers that were going to let us see gravitational waves and open a new window on the universe in just a handful of years. So nearly 50 years later, there has been an amazing amount of progress, obviously. I mean, the experiment information has been a revolution. Theory has also advanced tremendously. Our understanding of strong dynamics and deep questions in quantum gravity and quantum mechanics has changed a lot. And I'm delighted that you are, of course, here to think about opportunities for the next few decades. I'm sure it will be exciting. I'm sure that your work here will influence developments in the field going further, which will provide opportunities for students from this department and many others to spend time all over the world in unique places and pursuing unique endeavors. So once again, welcome, and let's have fun.
Thank you, Larry. Let me just, there we go. Just wanted to say thanks to everybody, the three of you. Without the help from the University of Washington, from the college, and from the department, this would not have come together. So just again, another round of applause. And furthermore, thank you so much for coming out on a Sunday morning. I know it's very early on a Sunday morning, so if you would like to get back to your weekend, please do not hesitate. So Larry mentioned, no, it's just, so Larry mentioned that the weather was supposed to be nice. And I just want to point out, this picture was taken from just outside here 2 days ago. That is Mount Rainier, and that's actually what it looks like. There's no filters, no Photoshop, nothing. And that should be showing up in another couple of days, just to give you some warning. All right, so does this work? Trying out all the new technology. If you could get that to the point where it works, that would be awesome. Okay. So I need to take a more somber note for a minute here. One of the things that makes us so strong is enable us to do these huge experiments, run and build institutions like Fermilab, like CERN, is the fact that we are such a strong community. Does it work?
Yes.
Yeah, could you? Oh. So I want to address another aspect of community, which is keeping each other safe. As I'm sure you're all aware, especially because we've been asking everybody to put on masks ever since you got here, we're in the middle of COVID. I was really hoping it would be done about 2 months after it was discovered, but I thought it was just going to be a lockdown. But we need to be careful and conscious. There are many different people here, spanning from the crazy young, which just means younger than me, up to the really old, which just means older than myself. So anytime you're indoors or in a closed meeting space, please wear a mask. If you're interacting with somebody and they've forgotten their mask, just feel free to just, politely ask that they put on their mask. I mean, all of us are pretty much aware of what's going on, and sometimes we get forgetful, especially when we get impassioned. So just a gentle reminder, and it should help us keep down the transmission. There are going to be over 500 people here at any one time, probably as many as 600 at some point. Over 700 will be cycling through over the course of the next 10 days. There is going to be some COVID cases. It's going to happen. I don't think there's any way we can avoid it. So keep yourselves masked. The other thing is that when it does happen, we're going to need to do contact tracing. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but there is something that you can help. Washington State has a automated app which uses your operating system's Bluetooth to exchange, anonymous numbers. It's called WA Notify. If people could run that for the 10 days or whatever amount of time they are that they're here, that would be totally awesome, because if one of us does happen to get COVID, it will make the contact tracing a little bit easier on us. So that would be a huge help. Thank you. So if you start to feel symptoms, hopefully not all of these at once, there is PCR testing available at the UW, and self-tests. We've got self-tests. We've got a limited number of them here at the front desk. If you've got some symptoms, though, please, until you really understand what those symptoms are, please don't attend any in-person meetings, just out of a caution. Your daily emails, whether you're registered or virtually registered for virtual or in-person participation, contain the Zoom links for all the meetings. We are doing our absolute best to make the Zoom experience as good as we possibly can. Please use that if you've got symptoms. On our main website, which we'll talk about in a second, there's a whole thing on COVID-19 with lots of details. This is just, I'm just telling you a few highlights here. If you do discover that you've got it, we need to initiate some contact tracing. The university, you didn't, I don't think heard it mentioned in the introduction, but we have a huge hospital system, and they are all professionals there. And they, in fact, have helped set up the contact tracing here in the United States, in the University of Washington. And that is triggered by making an email to ConfUW. This is anonymous in the sense that none of us, not even the two of us, will know who it is. The ConfUW, which is the central email address, will put you in touch with the folks who will do the contact tracing. And we will also let everybody know what the caseload here is in the conference. So everybody will know when we discover cases of coronavirus. Okay, I think Shiche, this is the Gordon and Shiche show.
So this is the participant for the summer meeting, and we have quite a diversity of team of people here, and many of these could happen because we got the tremendous support from a couple of sponsor to help us to get the young career to come to the meeting. And this is one major difference from the previous edition of the Snowmass. This is the first contact of any kind of support or the need and information you want. And you could reach out our conference service team and led by Deborah. And they will open this help desk in front of the keynote lobby all through this meeting time. And you will see a lot of helper dressed in black, and they are the people who will help us to run the whole event and to help each of the presenter set up the AV system in the room. And also, if you want to get the local tips, where's the best place to hang out, and feel free to reach out students. They will be really happy to share with you all exciting places around the campus. And here is the information page that contain all the useful knowledge that you want to look out related to any of the resource for this summer meeting. And Gordon will dive into a bit more detail.
Okay, so besides that web page, and this web page really, we've been doing our best to put, there's almost too much information on it, so you can't find it. But if you look at the menus across the top, you can see information just about all logistical aspects and events connected with this workshop. The other place to take a look is the Slack, the Snowmass Slack and the community summer study. That's an active link. So if you download from the agenda, you can get in there. We sort of, and I apologize for this, and especially to Rob who had to deal with this, force subscribed everybody who registered to that channel. This is because this will be the main way we're going to, there's a room change, for example, or something sudden like that. This is the way we plan to communicate. We are also doing our best to watch that channel so that if you've got logistical questions, we'll try to answer them there. This channel won't be used so much for physics discussions. There's many, many channels that already exist that could be used for that. All the frontiers have channels set up, and that's a great place to have those discussions. But here, this is a great place for, you know, how I'm locked out of a room. I need somebody to come help me or something like that. Okay. Okay, so this is basically the rooms that, the buildings that all the rooms are going to be in. We're a little bit spread out. So, whoops, did I just, that may have been me. We're still on? Okay, good. Sorry, I pushed the wrong button. So we are currently right here in Kane Hall. Right next to us is the Sluislo Library. When you go out, it's a fairly iconic building. It also happens to contain lots of places to sit and study, and many places where you don't even have to be quiet. You can sit in small groups. There's also a Starbucks there, which will be open starting tomorrow. We have meeting rooms in Johnson, Mary Gates, and the Husky Union Building, or the Hub, as it's affectionately known. This walk here is, depending on your speed, approximately 10 minutes or so, maybe a little bit less if you walk fast. This is also where the reception and the dinner will be later on this week.
And if you need a small group study place, and we have quite several places available on the campus. The go-to place is Allen Library. It's just between halfway the canal here and also the hub. You can see that you can freely walk in, you can occupy any table. And if you want a reserved place, just to be sure your team can be there without interference, you could talk to us and we can reserve a particular time slot for you. And other than that, we have a couple of places around the campus, and you could host up to 10 or 20 people's meeting. Feel free to submit a request.
So coffee breaks, you've already seen where one of the two places they're going to be held. The other place is upstairs on the second floor in the Walk of Ames for this building. And then for the first couple of days, also over at Hub. Do try to spread out. Coffee is obviously a place where you want to take off your mask so that you don't drink your coffee or eat your Danish or bagel through the mask. But it would be great to sort of get yourself out from away from the coffee serving for that. This information can all be found on our website under events. There's a thing called coffee breaks. Take a look there. It'll tell you quite a bit. The other one, the other thing are the local dining options. Jason Detweiler, a professor here, put together an absolutely insanely incredible web page which by area organizes where it is that you can find various things to eat. Please take a look at it. But to be frank, most of these are suggestions, and so they're pretty good suggestions. But if you're just kind of trying to explore, which I very much encourage you to do, Google Maps is probably, or Apple Maps or whatever, is probably your best friend there. So please, get out and explore. We have a limited number of suggestions on here, but there's plenty more, especially further afield.
And also, you could find a list of the events, outreach events, social events from the page over here. And we still have a couple of tickets available for the LIGO trip and also the baseball marina game on Monday. Feel free to register, get a ticket.
Okay, Larry mentioned a bunch of the physics that's going on in our department, both in the basement of it and also at a second building that we call SEMPA, which is over nearby the hub. We've set up lab tours. The SEMPA lab tours are posted, and you do need to sign up because we don't want too many people going through it once. And we'll get the basement of the lab tours set up shortly, hopefully in later today. The other thing that we're doing is something called Remotely Green. This is an online networking system which basically emulates a coffee, randomly meeting people for a coffee. We've got 2 events planned. Please look on our website. The first one's in Indigo tomorrow during the second half of lunch. If you happen to be near a computer, it's aimed towards early career folks. If you happen to be near a computer, please sign in. And there'll be one later, I believe it's Wednesday afternoon, which is aimed at all of us. Should be kind of fun.
And we have a poster session available starting from the reception event tomorrow evening. And beyond that, over the lunchtime, poster will also be available to access in the hub. Feel free to go there and to interact with all our early career who prepare their poster with their excellent work to share with you. And we want to share with you, this is our huge commitment to make this event accessible to everyone, in particular through the leading by Edis, who made a really huge contact to help us to understand how to accommodate everyone through understandable and respectful effort. And we have a couple of the surface. For example, we identify the childcare support for those of you who would like to bring your kids to join the event together. And in particular, we have a nursing room and also the quiet room. So if you need any of this support, feel free to go to that link and contact us. We can try to accommodate for you. And of course, we can start seeing the white coat caption happening now. This is going to be a important service, enable everyone, including people who from the Zoom can join this event in a very accessible way. So we have a couple of sponsors to help us to make this event happen. We need to thank DOE, NSF, and also Hygiene Science Foundation. In particular, many of the early career who can come here through the travel support. And we really thank all our funding agency here can help us make this happen. And we also got a couple of internet support, and NVIDIA and Radia Being has been very, very enthusiastic, support us in the very beginning from March when we knew we are going to have this hybrid event. So thank you for both of you. And Universe and Symmetry, they offer the poster award to make this event more exciting. And in particular, Universe provide a couple of reduced rate for publication. So feel free to come out, check the detail.
Okay, we've completely blown our time budget. So we'll just wrap up with a couple of very quick things. So first of all, if anybody of you know me, you know I love pictures. I certainly encourage everybody to take pictures. And we'll even upload them and put them part of the conference record if you like. Send me an email and I can send you back a place to upload them. Please, there are some people in our community who really do not want their picture taken. Please respect their wishes. They'll keep an eye out for you. You keep an eye out for them. I think together we can make sure that we're all happy and also get some fairly stunning photographs as the week goes by. And obviously, feel free to post to Twitter any of the interesting interactions that you see. All right, to finish up, there's one last aspect of community I just wanted to mention very quickly, which is the code of conduct. Please be welcoming and speak with and listen with an open mind, communicate with empathy, apologies, respect each other, recognize that intent does not equate to impact. Strive to make the informal activities that everybody is going to be engaging in. Seattle is an amazing city, and I hopefully will take advantage of it, to be inclusive, and of course, be consistently and actively working towards making this community better. If you have any code of conduct questions or issues, this is the mailing list. Unfortunately, I blew it and didn't get it set up in time. It will be active tomorrow. There's a 24-hour delay at the University of Washington for setting up these mailing lists. So by tomorrow, this will be active. With that, I just want to say, please stay healthy. This is, and I mean this both physically and mentally. The schedule is absolutely grueling. I don't think anybody who is writing it expects every single person to go to every single minute of this. You basically wouldn't be allowed to sleep anymore if that happened. So please do keep care of yourself. Don't burn out. Seattle is an amazing city. In a day or two, it's going to be blindingly sunny, and it's just going to be gorgeous. In fact, maybe we should just have our meetings outside. It's always sunny like that, right? All right.
All right. So good morning again, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on the globe. So first of all, I would like to add my thanks to Gordon and Xingxia and their UW team to taking on such a important task for these difficult times, and also the university leaders. Okay, please join me to thank them all. So my name is Tao Han from University of Pittsburgh. My co-chair for this session is Professor Shekhar Svukala from UC San Diego. So he's monitoring the remote participants. So on behalf of the Snowmass steering group and also behalf of the APS-DPF executive committee, we would like to welcome you all to this Snowmass community summer study, and welcome to Seattle. So it is a difficult time. And after more than 2 years hard work by all this collective community effort, so finally we are here. Finally we get together. It's so exciting to see everybody in person. Many of you may have come to an in-person meeting first time for a long time. So this is really exciting time. And we finally come together to conduct our final discussions, and hopefully we'll have a very productive outcome for this meeting. So without any overdue, let's get our scientific program started. So I would like to introduce our first speaker, Joel Butler from Fermilab. And Joel is current chair for APS-DPF and the chair of Snowmass steering group and co-chair of the program committee. Joel, please.
Okay, good morning. Greetings, first of all, from DPF. And this will be an overview of this, this meeting, its organization, and its goals. So, okay. So this is the outline. I won't dwell on it because it's a long talk, and I'll be lucky if I can get through it in time. This is a list of resources that will enable you to catch up with Snowmass or drill down on a part that you may not be familiar with. So you can use those. We'll probably augment that list as we go along. But let me jump directly to the goals of this meeting. So the Snowmass community planning exercise is organized, as it has been in the past, by the Division of Particles and Fields of the American Physical Society. And it is generally considered to be a year-long science study. Of course, this year, a year is slowed down and kind of really 2 years.
You could be even closer to the microphone, take off the masks. People cannot hear you as well.
What is going on?
More clear. Maybe take off the sound is off.
Turn, we're doing this now?
Which one you just pulled in?
Okay, so the goal is to identify the most important questions in high energy physics and the tools, infrastructure, and R&D required to address them. We plan to achieve a broader and deeper understanding of our science in the field and its connection to other research areas. We want to engage our junior scientists and foster community development. We want to reach a compelling shared scientific vision for this field moving forward in the US and in alignment with our international partners. And one important aspect of this is that we will provide input to the Particle Physics Project Prioritization Panel, also known as P5, which is expected to begin its work in the late fall of 2022 and produce a report in the spring of 2023, and I'll come back to that in a moment. Now, the community summer study and workshop is the final large meeting of this effort, and the main goals of this are to bring together the various frontiers or working groups that we've been organized in for the last almost 2 years now, and make sure that all of the cross-frontier inputs is received, and that will allow us to complete the report. And the charge of this meeting is to achieve these goals. That's the goal. Okay. So I'm going to say a little bit about Snowmass 2013, which is the previous edition of this, and the P5 that followed it, but you're going to hear a lot more about this later. In 2013, Snowmass provided input to the High Energy Physics Advisory Panel, HEPAP's subpanel P5. Using the Snowmass scientific input and budget scenarios provided by US DOE, P5 developed and presented to DOE a 10-year execution plan with priorities and specific recommendations for the field in the US, but it also kept an eye towards the 10 years following that. P5 has a very broad mandate, but it tends to focus on large projects and facilities. And one of our themes will be, there's more to that, to the field than just that. And we'll be interested to see how some of those issues get addressed. So this is just a picture that shows the Snowmass report, and it fed into the P5 report. And as I said, you'll be hearing a lot more about that later today. P5 famously produced 5 drivers, and I'm reading from, this is from the P5 report itself. And it says that Snowmass, the year-long community-wide study, preceded the formation of our new P5. A vast number of scientific opportunities were investigated, discussed, and summarized. We distilled these essential inputs into 5 intertwined science drivers, which many of you are very familiar with. One is Higgs boson as a new tool for discovery, pursue the physics of neutrino mass, identify the new physics of dark matter, understand cosmic acceleration, dark energy and inflation, and explore the unknown. Now, what I invite you to do is to look at page 1 and 2 of the 2013 report, and you'll see 11 principles. And P5 was guided by those principles in defining these drivers and doing its work. I think this is an important point. Snowmass 2013 had a direct impact on the outcome of P5. P5 has to deal with budget scenarios, limits and constraints that Snowmass is told by construction not to worry about, to focus on the science. But nevertheless, they do pay attention. I think the main recommendations were the ones that everyone remembers, but they were also the ones that had the most support from Snowmass. And there were 29 additional recommendations that led to a strong, diverse program that again will be discussed in talks later in this session. I do not believe that these projects would have been included without our strong communities who developed excellent proposals, explained them to their colleagues outside those communities so that we could reach some mutual understanding of the big picture of science that was our vision. So I think P5 listens. I'm sure the next P5 will too. And that's an important aspect of what we're doing here. Now I'm going to jump to the organization of this Snowmass. So we're organized in 10 frontiers, or they could also have been called working groups. And these each have typically 3 conveners, but not in all cases. And I'll just recite these for you, but I'm sure most of you know them. Accelerator, Cosmic Frontier, Community Engagement, Computing, Energy Frontier, Instrumentation, Neutrino Frontier, Rare Processes and Precision Measurements, Theory, Underground Facilities and Infrastructure. All frontiers have topical subgroups, kind of averages to 8. So we actually have 80 topical subgroups in all, and these groups are essential in doing the work and formulating the reports from which the final report will be derived. Well over 1,500 people have participated in this Snowmass process. I also want to mention early career scientists. Early career physicists have been formally represented at Snowmass for a long time, at least 2001, probably before that, I just can't remember. And they have gained even more formal recognition in 2013 and now in 2021/22. The key activities that they had planned to do for this Snowmass and carried out to a reasonably large extent, even with the pandemic, were to coordinate and to get early career members included in the process, in-reach to do professional development and building cohesion within the early career community, diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're champions of that, not just among the early career contingent, but in all areas of HEP. They have collected data by conducting surveys, which is very important. And they have the plan to develop a long-term organization as part of Snowmass that will eventually live past Snowmass and allow them to have representation and traction in the community after Snowmass ends. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the organization of this meeting. So these are the days 1 through 10 of the meeting. Here we are on day 1. Days 2 through 8 are organized the same way. There are parallel sessions run by the frontiers in the morning. At noon, between noon and 2, we break for lunch because we're trying to give you as much indigestion as possible. We have a dense set of meetings planned for lunch, but these are not lunch meetings exactly. They're meetings during lunchtime. You're not going to be eating at the meeting. You're supposed to grab lunch, I don't know, absorb it somehow in half an hour. You're supposed to run to these meetings and participate in them while being masked so that you're not exposing everybody to COVID. And then you're supposed to break for 15 minutes to get to the afternoon meetings. The afternoon meetings are basically plenary sessions, typically 1.5 hours each. In some cases, we have 2 sessions running in parallel. So they're sort of semi-plenary, I guess. But this goes on for days. And here all of the frontiers are bringing forward some of their key issues and their overall conclusions as they have it up to that point to try to tell other communities why their science is important, why their plans are important. And that's the way that we hope that the communities will start to understand each other, come to a mutual understanding that will allow us to create a vision and a consensus that we hope to emerge from Snowmass with. On days 9 and 10, we have discussions from members of the international community about what their goals and aspirations are, how they view our process, and what their processes are. And then we have these 2 morning sessions, which are basically the summation of the meeting, but they're done not in the usual way of just having frontier after frontier present. There are 2 sets of 2 panels And the panels themselves are supposed to be somewhat interactive and constitute the summary of the meeting. So that'll be an interesting experiment for us. Okay, so this is just a repeat of what I've said in words. So I'll more or less skip it and move on. Then I did want to say something about how we'll do questions in the plenary sessions. We are committed to having a balanced representation of remote and in-person users. And that is actually not so easy to achieve. So what we've organized is generally that we'll have all the speakers in the session speak. At the end, we'll have a panel discussion and Q&A period. We'll derive the questions from a Google Doc in which people from remote participants will enter things in the Google Doc, and moderators will take those questions. They can enter them before the meeting, during the meeting. They can even enter them after the meeting and hope that the speaker will pick it up. And then the in-person moderator will call on people in the room, and mics will be sent to them. We will try to interleave the remote and in-person questions. So we hope to achieve a balance that way. There is one exception for this meeting, this day one meeting, where the agenda is so packed that we're not going to answer questions real time until the 4:30, the session that starts at 4:30. So if you have questions, you have the URL of the Google Doc, enter them there, and the speakers will try to answer them after the meeting. But starting at 4:30, the sessions there will be time for discussion in the manner that I indicated above. Okay, so the next two slides are actually on COVID. So this one is about the impact of COVID on our process. This edition of Snowmass was planned for 2021. It was supposed to culminate in a meeting in July of 2021 at the University of Washington. By early 2021, it became very clear that COVID was not going to permit us to do this. It was having a major impact on our ability to carry out the necessary work. First of all, the lack of face-to-face meetings did reduce our efficiency, but also heavy burdens fell on many members of the community, but especially our young physicists, and especially the ones that had children or were caregivers in some way, who now had to care for people all day, had to care for their children, had to school them at home. And this was just too much to ask of them to also continue to do their jobs, in many cases remotely, and participate in Snowmass. In consultation with DOE, we agreed to delay P5. They agreed to delay P5 by 1 year. And we decided to take a 7-month pause, slowdown, or hiatus in the Snowmass process with the expectations that conditions would improve because of vaccines and mitigations that we knew were coming along. And so everything was rescheduled so that we would finish the process at a meeting here at the University of Washington, but now in July of 2022. The pause began in January of 2021, but by September, we were fully restarted. We had a Snowmass Day on September 24th of 2021 to review the plans for completing the work by this July. Vaccination and mitigation procedures have enabled us to have this hybrid meeting with this large face-to-face audience. And I do have to say that we'll always remember this is the meeting that was sort of delayed by COVID, but there were other disturbances in the world, political and social disturbances, that really also added to the emotional stress of this period. And has had an influence on what we do. So COVID at this meeting, you've heard from Gordon and CJ. The infection rate is increasing again. You should respect all UW and Snowmass rules and guidelines. You should especially mask whenever you're in close quarters and try to make sure that you can avoid being in close quarters if masking is difficult. There are a variety of strategies to limit the time we spend in close proximity to others. If you come to a meeting and you're very nervous about what you see, in most cases, the meeting can be handled remotely. You can go back to your dorm room. You can even watch it and run back for questions if you want to. You can also work outdoors and listen to the meeting because UW has strong wireless all over the campus. One important part of the in-person component is that you will be able to meet in small groups, and there you will be able to have private conversations with colleagues, and you can use distancing and common sense and masking to make those relatively safe. We honor and appreciate the hard work and resilience shown by the HEP community to accomplish all that has been accomplished during this pandemic and this period of civil and international stress. So we have to produce a report. This is the timeline for the report. We started off with over 500 white papers that were submitted. We then distilled them into preliminary topical group reports, which were due around June 1st. We are now forming preliminary frontier reports, which they're still being worked on, but they were far along during this goal date of June 30th. And our goal now during this week is to converge on reports for all the frontiers and produce executive summaries representing the views of their communities. And these will provide the basic input needed to P5. And we will spend the next few months forming a global executive summary and putting this in shape so that we can hand it over to P5. I want to say that all of the work that's been done, even because there are thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of documents, and the report itself that we send to P5 may be only 500 pages or so, but all of the contributed papers will remain part of the permanent record of Snowmass. So, summary and outlook. The Seattle meeting is a hybrid meeting with a large in-person, more than 700 registrants, presence, and a large remote participation, around 500 as of yesterday. Despite all the challenges, an amazing amount of outstanding work is being and has been done. As we begin this July meeting, we have the basic input to the Snowmass book and the P5 for P5 in hand. And I am personally in awe of the commitment of this community, which succeeded in the face of such great challenges. And I thank you and praise you all. We plan to give P5 a thorough picture of the most important physics opportunities and the capabilities needed to achieve them. As we begin to summarize this work, discussions and debates are beginning to intensify for the next few days, as they should. We hope and suspect that we will emerge from this 2023 Snowmass and P5 with a program that will enable us to do great physics and will have the same or higher level of community support that the 2013-2014 process had. So, this is just a final summary. First, COVID is not over. Be careful and stay safe. This was my attempt to say COVID is in the rearview mirror, but actually it's in the side view, sort of creeping up on us. I didn't know that when I first used this slide in another meeting. This shows us looking ahead to the future, but there is something important here. We have many young people. We also have many people that have been working in areas for long times. Use this Snowmass to see how physics looks in a different lane. This is the time to look at other things so that you understand why other communities are as passionate as you are about what they do. And when you see that, it will help you to understand the program which comes out, which will definitely have many pieces and parts, and will definitely be something of a compromise. So thanks to everyone in HEP and associated disciplines in the US and other nations who are helping us to produce what I'm sure will be a great result. Thank you for your attention and for joining us both in person and remotely.
Thank you very much, Joe, for the overview and also laying out the working plan for the next 10 days, 9.5 days for our workshop. So because of time, we would not entertain any questions. However, we do set up a Google Doc, and we encourage you to visit Google Doc and enter your questions, and the question will be discussed and answered afterwards. This is the same for the rest of the presentations today, because we have a very tight schedule. So now let's get started from the presentations from our frontiers. 10 frontiers plus 1 early career colleagues. So we do this alphabetically, but please, the speakers, keep in mind that we only have a 15 minutes sharp for each presentation, and we would not be able to entertain questions on site, but enter your questions into the Google Doc provided on the web page. Okay. Now the first one is Accelerator Frontier by Steve Goley from Brookhaven from LBL.
Yeah. Mhm. Okay, good morning. I think it's typical in a lot of cases to start out a talk by saying it's a pleasure to be here. And given the last 2 years plus, I'm really sincerely glad to be here. So on behalf of my co-conveners in the Accelerator Frontier, Vladimir Shiltsev and Tor Raubenheimer, I'm going to give you a quick overview of what our plans are for the meeting. So let me start by going through our key questions that were driving our process for the last 2 years. We want to look at what's needed to advance the physics, what is currently available, what's state of the art around the world, what new accelerator facilities could be available in the next decade or the next. In some cases, next, if we're talking about decades. What R&D would enable these facilities, opportunities, and what are the time and cost scales of the R&D and associated test facilities, as well as the time and cost of the facilities. And that's a big question that we spent a lot of time trying to answer and are still working on. Okay, so let me go through the working groups. We had nominally 7, I'll explain, they're actually more than that. So we had beam physics and accelerator education, which is sort of foundation of most of these down below. And you'll notice that some of these topics are directly related to the thrust areas in the General Accelerator R&D program at DOE. And some are associated with future machines and the physics associated with those. So we have accelerators for neutrinos, accelerators for electroweak Higgs, multi-TeV colliders, and there's obviously some overlap here depending on the energy. Accelerators for beyond physics beyond colliders and rare processes, advanced accelerator concepts. Then the last one, accelerator technology R&D, we broke into 3 groups of RF, magnets, targets, and sources, and all 3 of these are part of the GUARD program. And we tried to be as diverse as our community would allow us to be. It's very difficult, and I know a lot of you have tried very hard to get a diverse group of people working on this thing, but we had people from Europe, tried to have underrepresented groups as well. All right, and then we had a group of liaisons, Energy Frontier, Neutrino, Rare Processes, Theory, Instrumentation, Computation, Community Engagement, and Snowmass Young. Now these folks worked very hard to help tie together the work that we're doing along with what they're doing, and we really appreciate their efforts in that. And then we realized early on in the process that we were missing a very important component. And so we created another working group we called the Implementation Task Force. And this was an attempt to analyze and compare all the facility proposals that came across. We had something like 24, and if you include energy upgrades to some of them, it rises to about 30 that we had to look at. So we started out by asking them, the proponents, to fill out a parameter spreadsheet, which was about 3 pages, and we solicited their input. And we broke these into 4 main areas: Higgs factory colliders,
with a center of mass energy of 250, high energy lepton colliders up to 3 TeV, lepton hadron colliders, lepton and hadron colliders with 10 TeV or higher parton center of mass energy, and lepton hadron colliders. And then finally, another group of versions that could be located at Fermilab, and there was at least 4 of those that were discussed, I believe. All right, so here's the task force. The key questions, what are the time and cost scales of the R&D and associated test facilities? That was our 4th bullet of our charge. Thomas Roser was the chair of this committee. These guys have done a tremendous amount of work over the last 2 years. There was not much of a slowdown for them. And so they're charged with developing the metrics and processes to facilitate the evaluation of proposals and make a fair comparison. Now, this is very difficult because some are virtually ready right now. Others are perhaps decades away. And so this was a very challenging thing to do. All right, then we had some cross-frontier activities, mostly between accelerator, energy, and theory frontiers. We had these agoras, which were hosted by the Future Colliders Initiative at Fermilab. We had 5 different meetings, colloquia-style meetings, very useful, very well attended, a couple hundred people each time at least. We had one on linear E+ E- colliders, circular E+ E-, muon colliders, circular PP and EP colliders, and advanced colliders. And then we had these fora, E+ E- forum on the various E+ E- colliders, included instrumentation, energy frontier, and accelerator frontier, and a muon collider forum. And they've all produced reports that will be part of our summary as well. And now let me go through quickly the activities that we're planning. These are just focusing on the accelerator frontier, and I know others are going to talk about other things that we might want to join. So let me start with the plenaries. Monday, the implementation task force report on future colliders will be given. That's going to be very interesting, obviously. And then on Tuesday, there'll be a panel discussion on careers and training the next generations. It's very important that if we want to do any of these projects, we have to have the skills and resources to be able to pull it off. And then Tuesday again, lepton collider will be a lepton collider session covering these areas here. And then Thursday, accelerator technologies of the future. And then don't forget the summaries that Joel pointed out. That will be on Monday, all the discussion there. The parallel sessions. You may say in the Indico page that it's internal. That doesn't mean that people are excluded. That just means that the working group leaders were responsible for organizing what's in that session. So we invite everyone to come to those. Monday, we have Electroweak Higgs and multi-TeV reports. And Tuesday, advanced concepts in beam physics, accelerator education. Accelerator R&D and production program. This is a new program in OHEP, and Eric Colby, who's leading that program now, will give a virtual presentation on Tuesday, and they'll be followed by another discussion. And then there'll be a discussion on synergy with international R&D efforts. Then Wednesday, the AF6 group, the advanced concepts, will give their report discussion. And then we'll have a general AF report discussion where we try to integrate everything. Thursday will be between RF and magnets. And then we have rare processes report discussion. And then the second AF report discussion from the one on Wednesday. Friday, there'll be a neutrino, the AF2 group, the neutrinos will report targets and sources, and then multi-TeV and the cool copper collider, or CCC or C-cubed, if you like. There'll be a discussion there. And then we have a cross-frontier meeting between AF and EF on accelerator R&D overseas. Saturday, more RF and magnets, and then Electroweak Higgs and multi-TeV on Saturday as well. And then the beam physics report on Sunday, the National Future Colliders R&D Program initiative. This is something new we're trying to promote to help give us the momentum and the capability to be able to participate in projects internationally and nationally as well. And then a couple of more cross-frontier meetings, AF and CompF, and AF and rare processes meetings as well. And then I'm done. So, we were asked to provide whatever information we could on our report. So I uploaded a draft executive summary for AF along with my talk on the Indico site. So you can go check that out. That's it.
Thank you very much, Steve. So because of time, I think we should move on to the next talk from the community engagement frontier, Katavi from Brookhaven. So please go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I am Katavi Asamagan from Brookhaven National Laboratory. I'll give you a short summary of our community engagement frontier. So this frontier is convened by two of us, Breeze Queen and myself. And we have a 7 topical group: application and industry, career pipeline development, diversity, equity, and inclusion, physics education, public education and outreach, public policy and government engagement, and environmental and societal impacts. I will go through each of these topical groups. Our mandate was to develop how our community can progress in all of these topical groups so that we can sustain our community and sustain our field going forward in our engagements with our community in and outside. So this topical group on application and industry is convened by 3 colleagues, Farah, Alex, and Koji. There are 8 contributed papers here. There's a topical group report. The idea here is to develop and strengthen HEP and industry relations in both directions, form more partnership to draw on industry expertise to further our goals, and to build programs to facilitate transfers of technology for the use of broader society. I think we can all agree on these goals. The next one is career pipeline development. Here it's not just simply making young scientists aware of opportunities, but it's also changing HEP career path and developing mobility in HEP. There are 2 contributed papers here. There's also a topical group report. And we also have a group on diversity and inclusion. Apologies, this group is convened by 3 persons, Julie, Sudhir, and Anelia. And in diversity and inclusion, we have 4 co-conveners, Muchen, Carla, Cindy, and Johan. There are 11 contributed papers here, a topical group report as well. And the idea here is to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion in our fields to drive scientific advancements to achieve intellectual excellence. It rests on the premise that diversity in our fields is good for our fields, and it will make our field achieve more. Then In physics education, we have 3 co-conveners, namely Randy, Sudi, and Sibran. There are 4 contributed papers. It's broader than simply how we teach physics. It's about what education and training our field needs to produce the next generation of physicists for the success of HEP programs. So it's a very broad scope.
Yes.
Then we have a group on public education outreach. And here we have
all right, 1 second.
we have 4 co-conveners, namely Sarah, Catherine, Don, and Asvendini. There are 2 contributed papers here and a topical group report.
Sorry, Whitman Court?
Here, the work is to see public engagement
Whitman Court.
and education acknowledged as important within our field.
I think
Also
that's
rewarded
building
in our
right here.
career paths,
I see.
integrated
So,
into our research practices.
You might need to
so
like
that
walk
it is
around
recognized
to the
as a
front.
component of what
This
we
looks like the back,
mean
so if you just
to
like
be
follow this
a
path,
physicist.
slightly the front of the building.
And then group number 6 is on public policy and
So yeah,
government
so
engagement.
this is
It's
a little bend
convened
that
by
goes.
2 colleagues, Rob and Louise. Here we discuss all aspects of how HEP community is impacted by public policy and all the aspects of how the community engages in advocacy. I think as I'm going through all of these things, you agree with me that they are really important to make our community successful in what we are doing. There are 3 contributed papers here. Also a topical group report is available. Then our last topical group is about environmental and societal impact. It's convened by Veronique, Ken, and Mike. We cannot ignore the impact of our research efforts on the broader world, as the broader world will decide if we are allowed to do this research. Particle physics can have an outsized impact on the Earth's climate and on the community that hosts our research. So all of these things we have to pay attention to, and those are the things that we have been worrying about in this frontier for the last 2.5 years. We have also relied on liaisons to other frontiers. I won't go through all of them in the interest of time, but their names are here. Now, I'm just going to spend a few moments to talk about our plans during the CSS here. On July 18th, in the morning, we'll have a parallel session. The idea here is to have community engagement and representatives from other frontiers to sit down and exchange feedback. Our reports are available. You can take a look at them. If you feel that there's something that should be stated there or that is not fully stated or needs to be rephrased, this is an opportunity to come and tell us about it. And we'll also have an opportunity to tell other frontiers what we would like to see expressed in those reports related to our topics. July 19, also in the morning, we'll have a parallel session. This is community engagement, internal discussion, our intertropical group exchange and feedback. You are welcome to attend. If you want to know more about our topical group report, this is a session to attend. Then July 19, in the afternoon, we have this CF plenary. It's a 90-minute session. We cannot tell you everything that we have done in CEF. It's really amazing and comprehensive in all of the topics that we discuss. So we can cover all of that. So what we'll do is to take a slice through our recommendations. And we'll also discuss implementation and low community participation in CEF activities. What I mean by a slice here is that we'll take a major recommendation that is cross-cutting in all our topical group, and we will develop that recommendation across the topical group. So if you attend that session, you will see, for example, if you take EDI, how does it manifest in all of these all of, how does it manifest everywhere here? That's what I'm talking about, slice through our recommendation. But it doesn't mean that it's the whole thing that we have. We have a lot more than that in the reports. All right, so that's is going to be on July 19th. On July 14th, July 24th, we will have a plenary on communicating science to everyone. We invite you to this session as well. We're going to have some panel discussion in this session. Over here, I didn't say it, but we'll have a short introduction at the beginning to frame the session. Then through each of our topical groups, we'll develop the topic so that we paint a global picture at the end. It's going to be wonderful. Then there are other sessions that are related to our frontier, but they are not necessarily, they are the general sessions that are designed by the Snowmass committee. One of them is on July 18th in the afternoon. It's a plenary session, and we have suggested to discuss in search of excellence and equity in physics. We'll have a short introduction and we'll follow by a panel discussion. We have some experts who will be speaking on this issue on Monday afternoon. It's going to be wonderful. You should attend. Then July 19th, 2 to 3:30 p.m., there is a plenary session on career and trainings, the next generation. One of our is related to our community engagement topical group on career pipeline and development. So we will follow that carefully. One of our conveners will be talking in this session. Then July 23rd, there's a lunchtime session on communicating help to the public and government. So this will be related to our topical group on government engagement and as well as on public outreach. Then there are the summary, the frontier summaries. All right, I will stop there, and I would like to thank a number of folks and people who have really helped us. We appreciate the assistance of Diane Wang, whom some of you have not known, but she has been there in all of our engagement, planning, and management, and we really couldn't have pulled this effort without her. We also would like to thank Alan Stone for actually helping us in terms of the support that Daria provided to our frontier. And we express appreciation to all the people who contributed to CEF, the DPF chairline, the Snowmass committee for their support, listening to us and constantly trying to help us find solutions. The authors of the contributed papers, really thank you because you pull off the major topics into comprehensive narrative upon which all of our reports and recommendations are based. The experts that share their thought and expertise and experiences. We invited people from all over the places to talk about all of these issues I just mentioned, and we thank them. The liaisons help us maintain communication channel to other frontiers to make sure that we get the feedback, and we also provide feedback. We'd like to thank all of them as well. And then I really want to thank my colleagues, topical group conveners, my colleague Breeze. It has been really wonderful. I see some of them here. For the past 2.5 years, most of them I've only interacted with them through Zoom. It's great to see them here. I would like to really thank them for pulling this. We've been a very small team, but we did really a remarkable job of which we can be proud. And personally, I am really proud and really humbled to have been given this opportunity to work with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Katavi. I would like to thank all the speakers in this first session to giving these good presentations as well as keeping on time. I think now we can take a coffee break. So the second session will resume at 10:45, 10:45.
Folks, before we go for coffee, just a couple of quick things. So this room is technically no food, no coffee, water is totally okay. So if you brought something in, make sure it gets brought back out. All the trash, everything, please clean up carefully. Otherwise, we'll just lose the use of the room, which would be bad. Coffee is in 2 places, right where you saw, and also upstairs in the Walker Ames room, if that is looking too crowded to you. You can get there by just going up the stairs at the side.
I'll tell jokes for the rest of the time.
Hello, everyone. Please be seated. We're going to start soon. Please be seated. So welcome back to the second session of this morning. And in this session, we will have 3 frontier presentations. And then the last one of this session will be a theoretical vision talk by Professor Hitoshi Murayama. So let's get started. So the first talk is from the computational frontier, and Steve Gottlieb from Indiana University will present. Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, Tao. Thank you all for being here. It's nice to see all the smiling masks. I'm not used to speaking after breaks. People usually schedule just before a break or just before lunch because they know I'll stop talking if there's food. But there's no incentive now. At any rate, the computational frontier, like most frontiers, has 3 co-conveners: Daniel Alvira, who is here sitting in the second row right behind Chris Quigg, who just raised his hand, myself, and Ben Nachman, who is home in Zoom land watching after his new daughter. Our frontier is organized as 7 topical groups. And this is a little bit different arrangement from 2013, if you remember that, where we had topical groups based on the different other frontiers like energy frontier, et cetera. So it's more functional now and more cross-cutting. So Comp F1 is experimental algorithm parallelization. So that, as you might imagine, really deals with experimental algorithms. Theory calculations and simulation includes things like generators, as well as things you might expect like perturbative QCD, accelerator physics calculations, lattice field theory, cosmic simulations, etc. Then a new topic that wasn't really quite on the horizon in 2013, machine learning, that's Comp F3, storage and processing, resource access. Obviously, we can't do the computing without the computers, and we need to store the data. And the question is how we do that. And then we have a group, Comp F5, on end user analysis, which is really focusing on the physicists trying to get their analyses done and what we need for that. And again, another new interesting topic, quantum computing, is CompF6. And finally, CompF7 is devoted to reinterpretation and long-time preservation of data and code, which is also an interesting area for us because we really do want to keep our data beyond the life of the experiment, and there's not always good provisions for that. So that's how we're organized. And then we have a bunch of dedicated liaisons. I can say they're dedicated because I'm one of them, but we have one for every other frontier, and they're listed here, and we thank them. Then what's our work plan for this week? So here, most of the rest of the slides are about our parallel sessions in order. So we try to schedule one meeting for each of our 7 topical groups to present their findings to the community with lots of time for discussion. And so these are 2-hour sessions, and they were going to be in numerical order, but the way the travel schedules worked out, we start with CompF5 at 8 a.m. on Monday, and then at 10 a.m. on Monday, we have CompF2, the theory, calculation, simulation. I guess I don't need to repeat this. You can read faster than I can talk. CompF3 at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, 10 a.m. CompF4. Then we go back to CompF1 on Wednesday and CompF6, that second one on Wednesday. Thursday is the last of our 7 topical groups, and that's at 10 a.m. And the rooms here, and I hope they're accurate. Friday, we have the Frontier Report. So this is when all the topical groups, together with the Frontier conveners, will be there for 2 hours to discuss what we're recommending. And then we have an industry session where we have 4 representatives from industry coming in to talk about what they see as the future in computing, which I hope will be an interesting session. So those are the parallel sessions. Then as far as cross-frontier activities, I list 4 here. Oops, I'm sorry, hitting the wrong buttons. Thursday at 8 a.m., we have what we call big experiments. And you can decide whether you're a big experiment or a small experiment, but instead of trying to schedule a separate session, cross-frontier session with each of the other experimental frontiers, we have one where people can come in and hear what we have to say and tell us what their concerns on. Friday at 10 a.m. with the theory frontier, there's a session on quantum information science. This is in boldface to remind me that this has moved around. I have 29 emails about when this is going to be and where it's going to be, and I still don't know, but Gordon assures us he will find us a room. Saturday at 10 a.m., there's a small experiments meeting, and Sunday, there's a cross-frontier meeting with accelerator physics. All right, plenary sessions. So the first one is Monday at 2 p.m., which features artificial intelligence, machine learning. It's called Modern Machine Learning for HEP. And then Monday at 4 p.m. in the same room, I believe, is one on Lattice QCD, which is co-sponsored and organized with the Theory Frontier. On Monday evening, there, I think maybe part of a poster session or same time, there's a meeting with industrial partners where I think they're going to showcase some of their hardware. Tuesday evening, there's an industry networking session where I think the idea is that industry wants to steal you away. Don't let it happen. No. Please look at that for that session if you're interested. Saturday at 3:30 p.m. is one of our major plenary sessions on the future of computing for high energy physics. And then Saturday at 5:30 p.m. we have one of these semi-parallel plenary sessions on high energy physics, quantum science, technology. And I mentioned this is organized partially, well, by Martin Savage is one of the co-organizers. He's one of our topical group conveners, but this wasn't per se organized by the computational frontier. Okay, what about our reports? Well, our reports have been posted and you can download them from our Snowmass wiki page. So there's a section on the page somewhat far down called draft reports. And as far as I know, the frontier report, the draft frontier report can also be found there. And I think this is my last slide, contacting us. So we welcome your input. We hope we'll get it. Each topical group has a mailing list, a Slack channel. The details are on the wiki pages. The page is right here at the bottom of this page. Each topical group has an email list that many people are already subscribed to for over a year. And just start there if you want more information. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you for keeping up the time. So let's move on to the second presentation from Cosmic Frontier. It's going to be given by Professor Tim Tate, UC Irvine. So Tim, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. It's great to see you all in 3 dimensions. I have to say I saw far more of you in 2 dimensions than I really wanted to, though that was a comfort at the time. I'm here to talk about the working plan for the Cosmic Frontier. And in case you're wondering, the animal in the upper corner of my slide is an anteater. So the Cosmic Frontier basically seeks to understand the fundamental physics that governs the behavior of the universe and its constituents. It's kind of a tall order, and it uses the tools that really try to study the universe and those constituents around us. There's sort of a smattering of some highlights here down below, but of course, I'm not going to go through those in any detail. The Cosmic Frontier, as a result, hosts a wide range of research. It spans new cutting-edge detectors to novel analyses of data. They touch on astroparticle physics and also on astronomy, and encompasses the interface between particle physics and those fields. With the exception of neutrino masses, all of the really incontrovertible evidence we have for physics beyond the standard model, things like dark matter, cosmic inflation, dark energy, and the baryon asymmetry of the universe, are the direct result of Cosmic Frontier research. And so it is really the place where we know we can touch these mysteries. Of course, we have many ambitions to touch them in other places, as I myself have worked on quite a bit. So moving on to the big questions. What we'd like to answer is, what is the fundamental nature of the dark matter? How does it interact with the standard model? What would we learn by detecting it and figuring out what its properties are at the fundamental level? Does it manifest as individual quanta or collectively as dark matter waves? Can we further refine our understanding of its properties based on cosmic observations? Equally important is asking, what is the nature of dark energy and cosmic acceleration? Is the dark energy dynamical? We know in some sense vacuum energy has to be dynamical because we went through inflation and it had to end, and it may very well be that the dark energy we see now is in a similar situation. What's the physics of cosmic inflation? Are there other cosmological transitions that we don't even know about, but maybe we can imagine they exist, whose existence we could infer by looking at the evolution of the universe? Can we constrain or discover ultra-weakly interacting or super heavy components of the universe that we can't really produce here on Earth, but are there in the universe already for us, given to us by its beginnings? And how can we use our existing and planned facilities to extract information that is often more than the sum of the individual parts? And finally, and a very broad question, how can we use cosmic probes to learn about fundamental physics? We know that the cosmos produces particles at higher energies, even the particles we know about at energies that are much higher than we can produce on the Earth. They are an opportunity to learn about the fundamental interactions and new physics. Okay, the Cosmic Frontier conveners are myself from UC Irvine, Aaron Chu, who I believe is in the audience from Fermilab, and Marceli Soares Santos from the University of Michigan, who will be here this afternoon. We have 7 topical working groups. CF1 is looking at dark matter in the regime where it's interacting as individual quanta. You can see that we have Jody Cooley, Tracy Slatyer, Hugh Lippincott, and Tian Yu. I know that at least 3 of them are here for much of the meeting. CF2 looks at dark matter in the wave-like regime where it manifests more as a coherent effect. Jörg Jackel, Gray Ripka, and Lindley Winslow are leading it. CF3 looks at the astroprobes of dark matter. Alex Rukla-Wagner from Fermilab, Chanda Prescott-Weinstein, and Haibo Yu are leading that effort. CF4 is looking at dark energy and cosmic acceleration from the point of view of the modern universe. Modern, of course, has a different sense when we talk about the universe. It's led by James Annis, Jeff Newman, and Anzi Slozar. CF5 looks at dark energy and cosmic acceleration from the cosmic dawn and before. Clarence Chang, Laura Newberg, and Deidre Shoemaker are in charge of it. CF6 looks at the complementarity between the different cosmic probes we have. Vivian Miranda, Brenna Flauger, and David Schlegel have been leading that effort. And finally, but very importantly, CF7 looks at cosmic probes, and it's led by Rana Adhikari, Louis Sankardoki, Kei Fang, Satya, and Kirsten Tollefson. We also have liaisons with, I think, every single frontier except for Accelerator. You can see them listed here. They've actually been very helpful in coordinating this meeting. And I want to particularly highlight our Snowmass early career delegates because they have really been participating fully in our process, and they have left their mark on it. So going to the schedule, there's one half plenary and one plenary session for Cosmic Frontier. The half plenary is on Tuesday in the afternoon. It's called Cosmic Paths to Discovery. There are 3 talks scheduled, which are going to outline a vision for what we could imagine the discoveries over the next 10 years coming from the Cosmic Frontier could look like. So if you're somebody who maybe comes from a different background and you are not so sure why, what cosmology is really telling us, this is where you're going to understand how that connects potentially with particle physics and how it could really transform what we would think about in terms of what we're doing day to day. On Thursday, we have the full plenary, also in the later afternoon. It will have 2 introductory talks by Aaron and Marcelle about dark matter and dark energy and cosmic acceleration. And then there's going to be a panel discussion about cosmic opportunities for fundamental physics. And I think they're both going to be very fun events. There's a large number of parallel sessions that are interesting and some organized by the Cosmic Frontier. Starting tomorrow morning, CF 1 through 4 have working group meetings. That's their time to schedule as they can best use it. On Tuesday, that continues with CF 5 through 7. And then actually the ending of that slot has a discussion on dark energy complementarity. Also on Tuesday in the morning, there's a dark matter complementarity session, which has got a participation from a large number of frontiers. On Wednesday, and highlighted in yellow here in the morning, there's a space set aside for the working group report presentations. Every working group will present its report, and there will be a lot of time for the audience to participate, to ask questions, and to make comments. And this is a very good place where you can engage with Cosmic Frontier if you don't have time to read reports. Also on Wednesday, TF9, which is actually organized by the Theory Frontier, will make its presentation. And so while we don't organize it, it's definitely something that's of great interest to many of us. On Thursday, there is a parallel on large volume data analysis, simulations, and HPC usage. There is a time set aside in the morning for discussion of the Cosmic Frontier frontier level report. And then there's actually a panel at the end of that session on astroparticle synergies with particle physics, and that's going to be a lot of fun. On Saturday, we have a cross-cutting session with the Theory Frontier. That's been organized with a lot of really interesting presentations. And also on Saturday, we have neutrino instrumentation and Cosmic Frontier cross-cutting session to talk about large detectors of interest to all. On Sunday, we have cross-cutting sessions with neutrino and the Theory Frontiers to talk about high energy and ultra high energy astrophysical neutrinos, and also a cross-cutting meeting with Neutrino Frontier to talk about neutrino mass scale, basically from all the different ways we can try to hope to measure the neutrino masses, things like beta decay, double beta decay, and also cosmology. How to participate? Well, all the CF topical working group report drafts have been posted and they're being shared widely. Comments and questions are very welcome. As I mentioned, if you don't have time to wade through the reports, the parallel session will have a brief overview of each one and opportunity for you to actually contribute there directly. The CF Frontier report itself has not actually been posted yet. It's still moving towards being ready for prime time. Well, of course, we are working very hard on that and it will be ready very soon. I think there are good aspects to this because I think that we are still crafting the final touches on the message, and you can meaningfully contribute as a result. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tim. So now we come to the last presentation from the Frontier this morning. So it will be by the Energy Frontier. So this is the energy from. Yeah. Oh. Great. All right, so this is the Energy Frontier presentation by Alessandro Tricoli from Brookhaven National Lab. Alessandro, please, you have 15 minutes.
Hello, welcome everyone here, and I'm glad to present the work plan for the Energy Frontier. I'm Alessandro Tricoli from Brookhaven Lab, and I coordinate the work of Energy Frontier together with Laura Reina and Meenakshi Narain. But before I get started, I want to congratulate the organizers of this workshop. It's been a tremendous amount of work you have done in the last year or more. And I'm very glad to see too many friends and colleagues here. So congratulations again to bring us all here in person. But let's get started on what the Energy Frontier is supposed to do. So we set to explore the TV energy scale and beyond. And to do that, we want to answer fundamental questions, big questions, such as the evolution of early universe, matter-antimatter asymmetry, the nature of dark matter, the origin of neutrino mass, the origin of the weak scale, and origin of flavor. So the very fundamental questions that we try to address in the proceedings of the Energy Frontier. But also we want to explore the unknown. It's a driving force in the discovery of many new particles and new physics at the Energy Frontier. So this is a very important driving force in the future too. And to do that, we want to use several probes in the standard model and beyond the standard model in the electroweak sector, exploring the Higgs boson, top quark physics, strong interactions, and also indirect searches of new physics, such as dark matter, new particles, new interactions, and new symmetries. And to do that, we go through a breadth of signatures, both in the standard model and beyond the standard model, electroweak sector, Higgs boson sector, QCD, electric interactions, and the signatures of new physics beyond the standard model. At the beginning of a Snowmass process, we formulated a set of very fundamental questions, which we wanted to be our guiding principles to the work of the Energy Frontier in Snowmass. And we do that in panel discussions at the very beginning of a Snowmass. These are very fundamental questions, which you'll see will recur later on in these 10 days. So why physics at the Energy Frontier is important? How should the US be involved in the near future and far future Energy Frontier machines after High Lumi LHC? And what should be the next machine after the High Lumi LHC? And how can the US continue to play a leadership role in the Energy Frontier and its experiments? And how can Snowmass help develop a plan for the Energy Frontier research? How can it convince the community about our priorities? And also, should we entertain again the idea of having a collider in the US soil? And if so, what are the benefits for the US and the international community? So these are a set of questions will recur, as you see later on in our Energy Frontier meetings. And as anticipated, the Energy Frontier really thrives on new developments on accelerators and detector instrumentation. And we follow two main complementary directions to discover new physics. One is to look at known phenomena at high energies to indirectly probe for evidence of beyond the standard model physics. To do that, we think the Higgs boson, the production of Higgs bosons and many standard model particles in so-called Higgs factories is of great importance. And to do that, we need to have high luminosity, but also we have to set the energy of these colliders very carefully, because we want to probe also the TV scale and beyond through these indirect searches. But also we should search for new physics directly at the Energy Frontier, at the multi-TV energy scales. And this we need Energy Frontier machines, so possible high energy. But also we need high luminosity to explore signatures which are not accessible at the LHC or high luminosity LHC. So while it might seem that there is a dichotomy between energy and precision, I want to demonstrate that this is not the case. They're very much complementarity. So whereas on one hand, the naturalness seems to prefer new mass scales to be around the electroweak symmetry breaking scale, through direct searches, we excluded up to roughly a TV. Many of specific models that have been coming forward in the last decades. The method that we can employ to discover new physics really depends on the mass scale we want to reach and we can reach, and detectors and colliders we can and we want to build. So in this schematics, which is also in the Energy Frontier report, if you look on one axis of the mass scale and the other axis the coupling of BSM to standard model particles, and if we set the LHC roughly in the middle, we see we need Higgs factories to access low couplings at the high precision. And for this, we need the high luminosity. But also we should pursue the energy frontier and go to high mass scales directly. For this, we need future high energy colliders. And for this, we need very high energy machines to be built. So these are not, there's no dichotomy between energy and precision. There's really complementarity because we need to expand the kinematic reach of the LHC in regions which are a moment we are blind of. So which machines we should build? Hadron colliders, which are ultimately the discovery machines, very high energy can be reached, but also very high backgrounds, or lepton machines, which are very pure, allows precision physics. Can be circular, can be linear colliders. Here there are some pictorial representations of the major proposals which we have studied during Snowmass. And here are exemplified in two tables, which are the benchmark scenarios that we use for our studies. On the left-hand side are the Higgs boson factories, and so say up to about 1 TeV energy scale. On the right-hand side, about 1 TeV more multi-TeV colliders. Of course, high luminosity LHC stands by itself. It is a critical experiment that we are upgrading our detectors for. It's vital for our field. But also we study IRC, C-cubed, CLIC, CPC, FCCE, and muon collider as a Higgs factory. Going to the multi-TeV energy regime, we study the high energy LHC, FCC-HH, LHC-EC, FCC-EH, and also CLIC and a high energy muon collider at the TeV scales. So you see here the center mass energy, the polarization, and the case luminosity as we use as benchmarks. Insofar as the timelines will refer to the integration task force that was presented early on in the Energy Frontier report. So now let's go to the structure of our group. We have 3 main categories of topical groups, a set of topical groups in the lecture week sector. Then we have 3 in the QCD and strong interaction sector. And then we have 3 in the BSM sector. I also invite you to go to our Wiki pages and Indico pages to really see the work that has been going on for a couple of years. And these topical groups really overlap in many respects. And this is something we have exploited. We want to study similar type of physics, but from different angles. But also we thrive on the interconnection with other frontiers. And I will get back to this later on. So at the end, we have 10 topical groups, again, lecture week sector, QCD sector, and BSM sector. We have 2 to 3 conveners per topical group. And these conveners really are the pillar of our activities in the energy frontier. So we're really thankful for their dedication and their work. Without their effort, we could not produce such a wealth of results and very advanced report. So thanks to all the topical group conveners. But also we have a liaison with other frontiers, because as I said, really thrive on the bidirectional communication with other frontiers. And we also put in place 2 different collider fora, one muon collider together with the Accelerated Frontier and the Theory Frontier, another one with Plus-Manus Collider Forum, together again with the Accelerated Frontier and the Instrumentation Frontier. We put in place a Monte Carlo task force and production team to facilitate the production of Monte Carlo samples needed, and we have representations from the ELIC area. The work of the topical groups was shaped from the submission of the letter of intent early on in the process. We received 376 letter of intents, of which 268 had the energy frontier as primary. Huge amount of interest. And this turned into many contributed papers that were submitted lately, 149, and you see the breakdown here in different topical groups. Some of these papers are on a single analysis. Some of them are very much comprehensive. Some of them put together in a comprehensive way by topical group conveners. We're impressed by the depth of all these papers and the amount of these papers and study done. So I want to thank the community for submitting so many papers and the interest in the energy frontier. Throughout the 2 years, we had almost bi-weekly meetings at topical group levels, but also we had several benchmark workshops at the energy frontier level to see the progress of the activities in 2020. Then in 21, after a slight slowdown, we restarted the full steam. And more recently in 22, with a series of workshops preparing for this meeting and for the final reports. We had a workshop with the whole community. We had a workshop with topical conveners to implement the vision that was discussed in the previous meeting. We had meetings with representatives of the various major projects to discuss the vision with them. And then we made public the first versions of the reports and collected feedback from the community. Was already presented by Steve, the Agoras, which was a series of colloquia at the high level, but also we provide a lot of details on the physics reach of various collider options, the challenges, the R&D needed, the time frame and cost. These were very high attended, extremely useful. So I invite you to go back to those recordings and slides really to have more information. Now, going back to this meeting, we have a series of plenary parallel sessions. Insofar as the energy frontier sessions, there is a sheet there which collects all the sessions that are relevant for the energy frontier. I invite you to go there and use it as a reference because there are many. Starting from parallel sessions, we have many parallel sessions driven by topical group conveners, which go into detail in contributed papers and the top group reports. I want to highlight one section, the one on Saturday here in red. This one, Energy Frontier discussion and summaries. This is where what we consider really a plenary session, where we discuss the Energy Frontier reports at topic group level and Energy Frontier level, as well as the Energy Frontier vision. So you're invited to come there and come with your contribution. Also, we have many plenary sessions on the lepton colliders to motivate and discuss the status of the Placimanus and muon colliders. We have our official plenary session, where we set the case for Higgs factories and the multi-TV colliders at the energy frontier. And there is, in the last 2 days, a series of panel discussions. 3 of them are most relevant for the energy frontier on the physics satellites and large experiments and large facilities and their timelines, mid and small experiments and facilities and their timelines. In here, as already Joel presented, we want to show to everybody our close to final vision. So this is a very important set of panel discussions that we'll have. And it's very important to have a large attendance of cross-frontier discussions. We have a lot of these meetings and discussions with the theory frontier, accelerator frontier, neutrino frontier, instrumentation frontier, rare processes frontier. Really, we thrive on this overlap between frontiers. It's the best way to understand the physics as a whole by tackling from different angles. And I want to conclude discussing our reports. Behind here, the writing is written that we have one draft of the Energy Frontier report, and we have 5 reports at topic group level, one on the Higgs boson, one on top physics, one on electroweak physics, one on QCD physics, one on BCM physics, and 2 reports from the lepton collider fora, one on muon colliders, one on E+/- collider, which will be made available this week. So we made public the first draft on June 22nd, together with shared documents to collect the feedback from the community. Yesterday, we released a second version of the reports, trying to include as much as possible all the comments we received until then. We plan to release a third version of the reports soon after the end of this workshop, including all the comments we received in these 10 days. Our drafts are available in our wiki page. This is the link, but also linked in the Indico page in my presentation. And where you also find in this wiki page the shared documents for commenting. So please go ahead and comment, help us writing the best reports we can, and all the comments will be addressed. So to conclude, the goal for the Energy Frontier in this meeting is to converge on a broadly agreed vision based on community input and synergistically with the other frontiers. Please help us writing the reports, shaping the EF vision by coming to parallel sessions and plenary sessions of the Energy Frontier, as well as cross-frontier meetings, and submit your comments in the shared documents so we can go through them and implement them. And with this, I really wish you participate to our meetings, and I welcome you to help us build a strong Energy Frontier community and future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alessandro. So once again, I would like to thank all these presenters for this morning from the frontiers, and as well as the participants to have come up with such a nice plan. So once again, we're very much looking forward to a very productive conference in the next 9 days. Snowmass is a process for science. So we want to identify the most important fundamental questions in our field, and also trying to explore the means to answer these fundamental questions. So today, we are extremely pleased to have a Professor Hitoshi Murayama from University of California, Berkeley, and Kavli IPMU, University of Tokyo, to present his view and his vision in this regard. That's great. Okay, Hitoshi, the floor is yours.
And how does it work?
Just forward back on the next slides, previous slides.
And this is the pointer?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And do I use this microphone?
Yes. Please use it.
The pointer. Okay, thank you for the organizer for having me to give this a talk on what I think about the future of the field. And I stick to the title given by the organizers because theory, vision, the questions before us, working title may change. That allows me the opportunity that the vision might actually change. I doesn't move forward. That's right. So vision may change. And that's exactly what we're looking forward to in this workshop, right? Because we have some preconceptions about the field should be doing, but after this meeting, we may have totally different ideas. So we will see what happens. And so the vision was likely to change. So here's a disclaimer. The following contents are based on personal bias and lack of understanding, and the accuracy is not guaranteed. Some of the projects mentioned are hypothetical and may or may not occur. In case of disputes, you cannot file a lawsuit against the speaker, which is me. So you have to mentally click OK at the bottom. And I already see a progress happening in this meeting that the caption is maybe smaller without blocking the slide very much. So the last P5 came up with the following science drivers, just as a reminder. The first bullet was to use the Higgs boson as a new tool for discovery. I think I can take the mask off, right? And pursue the physics associated with the neutrino mass, identify the new physics of dark matter, understand cosmic acceleration, both dark energy and inflation, and explore the unknown, new particles, interactions, and physical principles. And many of them are still very much true. And now we have also made a progress from just 3 frontiers to 10 frontiers, and we actually need all of them. And it's actually very important to see this list of 10 frontiers so that we can appreciate what it takes to bring a field forward. And I'm looking forward to learn more about every single frontier from this. So what I'm looking forward to at this meeting is that we need to actually come up with a case, because public support to a field is by no means guaranteed. Just by saying that we are looking for the fundamental constituents of matter doesn't necessarily guarantee any future for the field. So we need to come up with a convincing case for all the proposed research explained in 500 white papers, and nothing is grandfathered in. I don't know how to make this gender neutral. Do I say grandparented in? I don't know. But anyway, and we need to then percolate the case for individual research into a case of a cohesive program, and they are intertwined anyway. And I'd like to actually say more about that in a couple of minutes. And we need to come up with a case for the entire field at the very end of the study. So that's a big job for all of us, but we hope to make that happen. So just reviewing where we are with the standard model, we have finally filled in this bullseye by the announcement of the discovery of the Higgs boson exactly 10 years ago this month. And this was a major achievement. What we have achieved is starting back from the end of 19th century when J.J. Thomson discovered the electron. We tried to understand how the microscopic world works, and eventually came up with a standard model, which is now completed. At least the particle content is now completed. It's a great success we should all be proud of. But we're not done with the standard model yet because the Higgs boson is so new. There's still many things to be understood about this. At the same time, we also know the standard model is not the complete story. We have at least 5 missing pieces in it. We don't know what dark matter is. We don't know where the neutron mass comes from. We don't know what dark energy is. We seem to see this apparently acausal correlation in cosmic micro background. And the cosmic micro background coming from that direction of the universe has just reached us. Didn't have any time to talk to the cosmic micro background on the other side of the universe, but we see the correlation function, which seems to violate causality. And the reason why we think this is possible is because we believe in the idea called inflation, that part of the universe and the other part of the universe have been together in a very tiny microscopic universe at the very beginning, smaller than the size of an atom. And inflation stretched it out so that it became a macroscopic universe. And once you subscribe that view, then the baryon asymmetry has to be created after the inflation is over, so that becomes a real physical problem. So these are the things we really would like to understand in the near future. And one thing which is really unusual about this list, which is doesn't happen very often in science, that the problems are clear. We know what we like to understand. We know the puzzle we need to solve. And that's not necessarily the case in vast portion of the history of science, but now we know what we would like to understand so we can think strategically towards this goal. And of course, we have some other anomalies we need to understand, like H0, tension, flavor, puzzles, G-2. There are many other theoretical problems we like to understand, like a hierarchy problem, origin of flavor, unification of matter and forces, and quantum gravity. Somehow quantum is behind the caption, so it's meant to be quantum gravity over there. So we need to understand all these things as well. So one big question, though, is that looking at this list of new physics, we would like to understand where is the next energy scale. We don't really know. But one thing we get started with, of course, with the energy scale we do know, which is the Higgs boson. And our field is called high energy physics for a reason. We have been pushing forward to higher and higher energy ever using particle accelerators. And we think there's something really amazing to be discovered at yet higher energies. And LHC, of course, has been leading the way. And that led to the discovery of the Higgs boson, which, as I said, is a major, major achievement. And we, of course, have to make sure that high luminosity LHC will be successfully executed. Hopefully, that will tell us something new beyond what we know already. But right now, we don't see anything beyond this. So our view is now shrouded with clouds at this moment. And the reason why we need to study the Higgs boson more is that using the Higgs factory and precision measurements, we hope to get a glimpse of what's going on at high energies through the precision measurements using effective field theory approach. So the Higgs factory would pave the way to understand where the new energy scale may be. So that's one reason why we like to do that. But at the same time, recently the community came to this realization that energy is not the only axis. There's another axis called the coupling, which means that the new physics, which may be really exciting, may not necessarily be at higher energies, but at lower energy, but at the weak coupling. So we may not only look to the right, but also need to dig down towards the bottom of this plot. And that's what Higgs factory can do. For example, there are many ideas on the dark sector physics and baryogenesis, which may be happening at a relatively low energy, but weak coupling. So how do we go about and actually look for it? And traditionally, we've been actually using low energy colliders like the Super KKB at the for the B factory for beam dump and fixed target experiments in astrophysics and cosmology to reach the physics at small coupling at relatively low energies. But Higgs factory would also allow us to approach this direction as well. And especially when the machine is linear, you also have an opportunity of mount experiment at the beam dump. So there are many ways to approach this direction of going down, digging down into smaller and smaller coupling at relatively low energies. And at the end of the day, we would like to have a high energy machine so that we can punch through this cloud and see the new physics and new high energy work directly using particle accelerators. And one thing I learned from KK Directorate is that the Japanese government is finally showing some hint that they have interest in this kind of a machine, that they are boosting the funding of like $3 million into the linear collider R&D to $10 million scale, and so that we can actually study a much needed R&D work on the E plus minus accelerators starting the next fiscal year. I think Masa Yamauchi will tell you more about that at the last session of the Snowmass meeting. But the reason I think that Higgs boson has to be studied much better is not that I love it, but I hated it. When I was back in grad school, I just couldn't believe such a thing would exist. Higgs boson is the only spin zero particle in the whole theory of the standard model. We have never seen such a particle before. And the fact that it doesn't have a spin means it's kind of faceless particle. If the particle has a spin, it would look different depending on how you look at it. That's the rotational symmetry of the particle. But the scalar particle with spin zero looks exactly the same no matter how you look at it. So it doesn't have a face. It's a very spooky particle. And so it's one of its kind without any context within the standard model. So back in grad school, I couldn't believe such a particle would exist. And we assign the most important job within the standard model to this particle we have never seen before. So it looks very, very artificial theory to me. So as a fact, I developed the idea of something which may actually get rid of the Higgs boson in theory, because we still don't know the dynamics behind the Higgs boson, why this particular particle is frozen into empty space in our universe. So I developed this Higgs theories. But now that Atlas and CMS people discovered this particle, so now this is proven wrong. And so recently, whenever I go to international conferences, I've been apologizing, pretending that I'm a proper Japanese. So much of the ideas of the theories developed in the last several decades is to provide context, why such a particle should exist. The idea of supersymmetry is basically saying that, well, the Higgs boson is just one among many, many scalar particles that exist. It just happens to get a negative mass weight because of some loop diagrams. And as a result, we are supposed to see many, many new particles like superpartners. Another idea is that, well, we have seen scalar particle before, like pion, which is a composite object. We have not seen an elementary scalar particle before, but if the Higgs boson is composite, maybe spins cancel among the constituents. So in that case, we need to understand this new strong attractive force that binds the Higgs boson together that will lead to many new composite particles in a spectrum which are yet to be discovered. Or maybe Higgs boson actually does have a spin, but it's spinning in extra dimensions we don't see. That's why we think it doesn't have a spin, but it actually does. So in that case, we have a new particles running in the extra dimensions that would appear as the excited states of the particles we know, namely Kaluza-Klein particles. And all of these ideas have to do with the Higgs boson. In some way, we need to actually provide the context why such a particle exists. So that means that we are looking for new laws of physics. Interestingly, many of these theoretical ideas prefer the mass of the Higgs boson, which is away from what we have seen. Supersymmetry prefers lighter Higgs boson than 125. Composite Higgs idea prefers heavier Higgs boson than 125 GeV. So the mass we have discovered seems to be in no man's land for some reason. And that's why we are very puzzled. And even though we are puzzled, we can use the Higgs boson for something else. Because if you think of, for example, dark sector, which may have its own spectrum and forces and particles that would eventually lead to the existence of dark matter, The lowest dimensional operator that can couple the dark sector particles to the standard model is through the Higgs. Direct detection experiments, many of them are looking for dark matter through the exchange of the Higgs. So the Higgs boson plays this dual role, that it is doing the most important thing in a standard model, but it may be also a window to the new world of the dark sector, and that's why it is very interesting. And compared to many other operators you can write that couples the standard model dark sector, this Higgs boson coupling is the least suppressed by high energy scale, so that this may really be the first step towards understanding what's going on in the dark sector. For example, I myself have been thinking about this idea that the dark sector is also SU3 equals SU2 equals U1. And the electroweak symmetry breaking in the dark sector might have a phase transition that would lead to the baryon asymmetry in the dark sector. And you can transfer the lepton asymmetry in the dark sector to the standard model through the neutrino portal, which may lead to interesting signature in, for example, the Higgs decay. And then the lepton asymmetry gets automatically converted to baryon asymmetry in the standard model due to the electroweak spharoron effect. So in that case, the baryon asymmetry in the dark sector would eventually form the dark baryons as the lowest spectrum in the theory. And so this dark baryons could be the dark matter. So this way you can understand the origin of the baryon asymmetry in the standard model and also the origin of the dark matter in the dark sector at the same time. And that will lead to a particular prediction that the dark baryons may be about 1.5 GeV or 60 GeV, depending on which origin of the baryon asymmetry comes first. So in this kind of idea, that the everything that has to do with the dark matter and the baryogenesis is relatively low energy, and Higgs boson would couple two sectors almost inevitably, so that the Higgs boson would have this invisible decay, which can be probed first by the high luminosity AOHC down to a few percent level, and eventually at E plus D minus down to a few per mil level. Or the Higgs boson can decay to particles in the dark sector, which may come back to the standard model with the exotic Higgs decay modes. And the exotic branching fractions could be even more complicated than this study by Liang Tao and company. So the Higgs boson would provide really a window to the dark sector in this kind of scenarios. So that's something we are looking forward to. And in addition to this particular energy scale we know is important, namely the Higgs boson, we would like to, of course, explore what is actually out there, and we have to do an expedition. So LHC is the start, and then we have many different probes from precision and wear processes, like electron dipole moment, quark flavor physics, lepton flavor physics like mu2e, and then neutrino would probe much higher energy scales through the seesaw mechanism, and then that would eventually reach the scale of the unified theories, where the forces in matter might be unified. And the proton decay, of course, would be direct probe to this kind of idea. And also the gravitational wave is a new tool we have recently discovered, which can allow us to probe very, very early moments of the universe. So there are many ways of doing the expedition to understand high energy scale physics. And we are talking about these big projects, Dune in the US, Hypo-K in Japan, that would allow us to understand whether neutrino has to do with anything with the origin of the baryonic matter, namely baryogenesis or leptogenesis, which may be happening at extremely high energy scale. But if that's the case, the plausibility test of that idea is looking at a CP violation in neutrino oscillation physics. And in addition to it, the proton decay is a major target, at least in my mind, both in Hypo-K and Dune experiments. The Hypo-K is looking for primarily the E plus pi naught mode, predicting generic grand unified theories. And the Dune can look for specifically into the prediction of supersymmetric grand unified theories in neutrino KO mode, which is very difficult to do in Walter-Cherenkov detector. So that these would provide great opportunities. I myself need to be educated better how complementary and competitive these two approaches are. They are very different experiments, one using the narrow band beam from the alpha axis in Walter-Cherenkov, another one using broadband beam on a liquid argon experiments. I'm sure there are many different things we can learn from having both, and I'd like to understand this better. I had a great opportunity to actually get into Super Kamiokande a few years ago. I put on this gondola and gradually gone into this Walter-Cherenkov detector, and it's really, really amazing. looking at all these phototubes at the top and the side, and looking downwards from the gondola, looking at the bottom of this tank. And it's amazing and beautiful, and how deep and big these projects are. And you can see how clear the water is. You can see the bottom phototubes through the water with a couple of meters depth. And I can't help thinking about what would happen when our civilization dies, new generation of civilization arises, and the archaeologists of that new civilization happens to discover the Super K. I'm sure they would argue that this was a religious site, right? I'm sure of it. But anyway, so the one thing which is very difficult in this business is that the region for this mass of what is called the right-handed neutrino, which might have generated asymmetry in baryon and lepton at the early universe, is extremely high, somewhere between 10 to the 10th GeV and 10 to the 15 GeV. Interestingly, it is not quite a Planck scale either. So these masses are presumably generated by its own Higgs mechanism, but with a phase transition at a high energy scale. And that phase transition actually is bound to produce something similar to the flux tubes in type 2 superconductors, namely cosmic strings. And those cosmic strings have the possibility of producing gravitational waves, which may be detected by the future observatories. So the neutrino physics doesn't stand alone. It's really coupled to other probes in cosmic frontier and energy frontier in many different ways. And we know that the one thing, great success of the accelerator-based physics experiment is that we managed to throw neutrons at protons to see how they can stick together to form helium. That's the nuclear fusion process, obviously. And looking at the experiment in laboratory, we can predict that the hydrogen to helium ratio in the universe must be 1 to 3. And that's exactly what we find in telescopes by looking at astronomical spectra. The hydrogen to helium ratio is indeed 1 to 3. So what we can do in the laboratory is exactly what has happened in the early universe. So accelerators can really reproduce what was happening at the earliest moments in the universe. We hope to do that once again using dark matter. If we can find dark matter in accelerators, and measure its properties in great detail. If you also find dark matter in underground experiments or indirect detection, understand its reactions in the universe today, then we can compare them against each other to see if the property of dark matter we understand in accelerators is really the property of dark matter we see in the universe today. So that will be a great repetition of this great success we already had with the Big Bang nuclear synthesis. And so we hope to learn a lot more this way. And pushing the physics in this direction is the high energy colliders indeed. But at the same time, as I mentioned already, things like leptogenesis happens in extremely high energies. And also inflation is at the very beginning of the universe, as I mentioned earlier. But they can lead to gravitational wave signature, which may be seen by new gravitational wave observatories. Inflation will also stretch the universe out, at the same time jiggles the space-time. The jiggling of space-time eventually becomes classical and become gravitational waves. And those gravitational waves would also jiggle the photons from cosmic microwave background, producing this B-bone polarization, which what we're looking forward to discover in CMB experiments. So there are many probes we can think of, looking back into earliest moments of the universe. At the same time, we also want to understand the future of the universe, whether the universe keeps expanding exponentially, or would eventually turn back into the decelerating expansion in the future. And so the dark energy experiments also proliferating here. And we have the space-based experiments like Euclid and Roman. We have the galaxy surveys on the ground. DESI is already happening. Rubin is coming soon. PFS, I'm involved, will come in in a year and a half or so. And all of these things would probe also a very important idea from the quantum gravity and string theory named swampland, which predicts the dark energy is not a cosmological constant, but should slowly decrease as a function of time. Whether that is true or not would have a profound implication in our theoretical understanding of the universe somehow. Dark matter is definitely there, but what we know is very little. We have some limit from looking for the microlensing events, which excludes dark matter mass above 10 to the 50 GeV or so. If the dark matter is too light, its bore radius wouldn't fit inside the size of the galaxy, so it can't be too light. That excludes dark matter less than 10 to the minus 30 GeV or so. That still leaves about 80 more orders of magnitude in the possible mass of the dark matter, and that's where we are. So we really don't know where to look at this moment. And there are many, many theoretical candidates for this. On the highest end, something called Q-balls, which is the solid-like solution to the field equation, may give you a very heavy dark matter candidates. Rocky Corp talks about wimpzillas, which is like a wimp, but like Godzilla's is very heavy. And so that's maybe a possibility up there. And expanding this region of the mass scale, there are still many, many candidates for dark matter. I'm listing only those I had some positive association with because there's so many ideas on what dark matter may be. And so that I can't do justice to many, many ideas submitted to Snowmass meeting. But this plot is just meant to indicate how little we know about this, but we need to look very broadly about what dark matter may be. And we have been focused on WIMP quite a bit, and we have been digging down on the small and smaller couplings for WIMPs, but we have to also look into other possible opportunities. And there may be actually low-hanging fruit somewhere. We haven't looked yet. So if you start doing a new kind of experiment, then discovery may be imminent. We just haven't looked yet. So that's the idea, the way dark matter landscape might be. I have personally been looking into the idea that the dark hadrons, as I mentioned earlier, is a dark matter. And I'm learning a lot from actually lattice QCD these days, how the dark hadron might be different from the hadrons we know and love in QCD. And that would give us actually more opportunities on what dark sector might be. So there's a lot of connection going on here. And we have been doing a great job in looking for WIMPs in direct detection experiment and indirect detection experiments from the invisible Higgs from the LHC. And it's amazing that LZ experiment was just started has already produced the world best limit on the WIMPs. And we are digging down in this direction. And we are now approaching the level of hitting the point where the neutrinos become the background to the search for the dark matter. That's a neutrino floor. And at least we need to get there, I believe, in my mind. So there have been an explosion of ideas, both theoretically and experimentally, concerning dark matter. There are many new dark matter models, which we haven't thought about before. There are many new experimental proposals to look for the dark matter. A direct detection experiment with noble gas that is happening, but different noble gas can be used. New quantum sensors, cavities, radio, even chemical technique, like a magnetic avalanche of certain molecules. We have been also doing the indirect detection with the gamma rays and the antimatter and neutrinos. And WIMPs, as I said, should be switched down to neutrino floor, but other opportunities should be also pursued because, as I said, there could be low-hanging fruits out there. And lastly, I'd like to mention just one thing about this issue of the hierarchy problem. And the hierarchy problem actually is something we actually grappled with at the end of the 19th century, when J.J. Thomson discovered the electron as a point particle. And when Maxwell told us the theory of electromagnetism, there was already a hierarchy problem. And I'm sorry that this is misplaced by the conversion from Keynote to PowerPoint, but the idea here is that if the electron is point-like, a very tiny size, and we know the electron is more than 10 to the minus 17 centimeters from the accelerator-based experiments today, and that small size would produce the Coulomb self-energy of the electron, which is bigger than a GeV. And that can't be true, right? We know the mass of the electron is half MeV. So if there is GeV contribution to the electron mass from Coulomb interaction, then the mass of the electron originally has to be negative GeV. They cancel for at least 4 digits to reproduce the observed mass of the electron, which is a half MeV. So we can't believe that. So that seems to imply that there's a level of 10 to the minus 4 fine-tuning in the mass of the electron. But we don't talk about this anymore because this problem had been solved by discovering quantum physics and antimatter. So the minute you know that quantum mechanics is true and antimatter exists, we know that what you think is a vacuum is constantly going through this quantum fluctuation or producing electron-positron pairs. So when you place an electron in the vacuum, sometimes this electron would notice that there is a positron around it as a part of quantum fluctuation and decides to annihilate that. Then the electron that was part of the quantum fluctuation now remains as a real particle instead. So the minute you accept quantum mechanics and antimatter, this process exists. And it so happens that the Coulomb self-energy in this new process almost exactly cancels. So even when the electron is as small as the Planck scale, as the string theorists might say, then there's only a 10% correction to the mass of the electron at the end of the day, because it depends only logarithmically on the size of the electron. So we don't talk about this problem anymore because this problem had been solved by doubling the number of particles, namely antimatter. And the idea of the supersymmetry is that we do this again, and by doubling the number of particles, by introducing superpartners, we have the similar problem with Higgs boson that repels itself. We know from, again, the laboratory experiment of cold atoms, but if the interaction between cold atoms is attractive, then the BEC would collapse and undergoes what is called the Boson-over. It goes an explosion. That wouldn't make the universe stable. So we know the Higgs boson should repel each other. Otherwise, this Higgs boson condensate in the universe wouldn't be stable. But this repelling force would actually create, yet again, a big contribution to the mass of the Higgs boson, which needs to be canceled somehow, and by doubling the number of particles again, and that's the idea of supersymmetry. So we kind of stopped talking about the hierarchy problem at some level, simply because we haven't discovered supersymmetry yet, but I take this idea still seriously, so we should keep looking. Maybe supersymmetry is hiding somewhere. I don't know where, but it may be due to some rather unusual ideas on how supersymmetry works. Or it may be just delayed, namely at a slightly high energy scale. And that's exactly what a guru in a community tells you, that better late than never, because that would actually solve this very important theoretical problem. So we need to come up with much more clever analysis of the existing data, which may be relying on computing frontier and the machine learning. We'd like to do this Prussian Higgs study and flavor physics study to get a glimpse on what may be happening at high energies. And next thing, of course, is high luminosity LHC. And eventually, we like to go to really high energy machines like the 100 TeV PP collider, muon colliders, or plasma-based E plus E minus machines. So that's what we are looking forward to. And of course, we need to do R&D for this. In all of this activity, and theory and computation provide guidance, sometimes also misguidance, I'm aware of that. As testable theories support precision predictions and excitement to the field, so we need to have this area of activity. Community engagement is also crucial to sustain healthy community as well, as to also obtain support from policymakers and public at large. And in this context, support for research is very important. And diversity, not just in people, but also scientific diversities is also very important, and to keep the field healthy and exciting and provide opportunity to young people. So this is the slide I'm repeating. And at the end, we need a case for the entire field, but I think there's plenty of opportunities and excitement that are happening now that problems seem to be very clear what we need to address. And so that would lead many new things to be looking forward to. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Really, thank you very much, Hitoshi, for such a wonderful talk. Quite inspiring. And I think the broad coverage topic certainly will be discussed in great detail during our workshop and in the Snowmass process as well. Thank you very much again, Hitoshi. That brings up to the conclusion of this morning session. So we will come back after the lunch break at 2 o'clock at the same place here. So have a nice lunch break.
Yeah. Yeah. Stop recording.